Okay, well, welcome to another podcast. Now, I'm here with Matt Jacob today, and I'm going to let Matt tell his story because he can tell it a lot better than I can. But he's got a really amazing story, but not only relating to photography, but also relating to life, which, we've all got one. So it does affect our photography. So, look, I'm going to hand straight over to Matt to let you talk about yourself and really introduce yourself to everyone who's listening. So over to you, Matt.
Wow, let's put me on the spot straight away, shall we?
I love it. Oh, you mean to go on?
Yeah, it's always a difficult one to talk about yourself, isn't it? I do have a story. I never think it's that anything special or different, or I mean, it is different. It's unique, of course, but I wouldn't say it's anything more special than anyone else. But it got me to where I am today, and it has obviously influenced the way I see the world, and especially the way I see the world through my camera lens. So, yeah. So I was brought up in the UK. Brought up in a household that was very loving and very supportive, but was not very creative. My dad was in the military. My mum's a dentist. And they were very old school in the way they wanted me to go to university, get a good job in quotation marks, and go through kind of an orthodox way of being brought up into the adult and professional world. And the life of a pilot drew me to wanting to go to university, get degrees, be as best at academia as I could, so I could be good at maths and physics, and therefore have a good chance of becoming a pilot. That was kind of my dream, and I was very, very fortunate to be able to achieve that. And so the first early entry into adulthood and to kind of professional life was as a pilot. And through being a pilot, I was exposed to many parts of the world, and in a very kind of privileged way. But my eyes were definitely opened very widely through being a pilot and getting paid to travel, essentially. And by the time I reached 30, I had traveled to many countries and realized that I'm not doing anything in these countries. I'm not giving to them. I'm not giving back. I'm not, I'm coming home, and at this point, there wasn't really social media. There wasn't digital photography was obviously around, but there wasn't kind of the fast and digitized way of sharing one's life and experiences with the world. And so the camera was something that I kind of picked up in a real interest of being a geek, essentially being a techno kind of interested young man. And it was the buttons, and it was a gadget, and it was a toy. And that, combined with my travel interest and wanting to almost document my life through something, or at least kind of in a self-serving way, show people, oh, look, this is where I am, right? This is what I've experienced. And obviously quickly grew out of that. But the camera was something that allowed me to, I don't know, play with that interest and play with that expression.
Mm.
And so, yeah, by my early 30s, I was just playing around with cameras on work trips and then on holidays as well. So as I kind of played around with the camera and learning kind of technical stuff, which came quite easy to me just because I had a technical brain. What didn't come easy to me, or what I really didn't understand or get, or was very naive to, was kind of the artistic elements of photography and learning how to tell narratives and context, and I would say the more artistic side of photography. And it was through that kind of desire and I guess overwhelm and confusion that I don't know, I got better at that, and because I really wanted to kind of get more into that side of photography, and that's really how I found my style, and that's really where portraits came in, and the human nature of photography came in, and documenting different cultures and different indigenous populations, and that's really where it all kind of culminated my curiosity for travel, different ways of life, and how to best artistically convey those through the camera. So yeah, I hope that wasn't too long of an answer, but it kind of brings us to where I am today with me and my camera, I guess.
No, that's fantastic. And I think a lot of people can relate. I can certainly relate because when I started, it was all film cameras and I'd be down the second-hand shop getting all the stuff,
Yeah.
off-camera flashes and it was all really exciting. And then you go to take a photograph of somebody and it's not about them buttons anymore. It's about trying to connect with them.
No.
And that was where I started the struggle. So, I think I'm sure many people listening can relate to that you can get into the techie part and then all of a sudden you're having to turn into an artist. With the portrait work, what was your aim with portraits when you were traveling and taking portraits of people? Was there something you were striving for when you were taking those photographs?
Yeah, it was to drive awareness, I guess, in the viewer. There was always something that some element of photography I didn't quite get at an early age, and that was exactly the question you asked. What was the intention behind all this? What am I doing this for? And it made me, I still think about that today. It's a daily pursuit and daily kind of goal to answer that question with everything I do. What is the intent behind it? What's the why? And that can change all the time and that can shift. But with portraits, there was always a theme of self-interest or self-curiosity in what I'm taking or the people that I'm meeting. Because the experience and the connection I would get from these people would far outweigh the photograph. And especially in my early days where I just couldn't get a good photo. I thought it was good, but it wasn't, right? I didn't know what I was doing. And so it's always, when I think back on my early photos, I think even actually not just my own photos, but I always think of the experience of the people. I don't think about, oh, that's technically a great photo or that looks really nice. So the purpose and the intent behind it today is still the same, and it's twofold. It's to drive my own curiosity and challenge myself with, how can I get a good connection here? How can I learn more about these people or this place or this environment or this culture? But also, how can I then convey that in a connective tissue to the audience and to the people seeing my photos? How can I drive their curiosity and how can I drive their awareness and how can I help educate them maybe on some people that they've never heard of or they don't know about or a location that they've got no idea about? So it's kind of both ends, I guess, of the camera, one of my own and one of hopefully, I mean, inspiring maybe, but really I want to just drive the curiosity of the viewer, and I want people to look at my photos and go, okay, that looks really nice, but what's going on here? Who are these people? What's the story behind this face, these eyes, or this location? And that's my job done. If I can do that and really spark that interest and curiosity in the viewer, then that's what I'm aiming for.
Yeah, I personally, to me, that's very important. It's about having that connection. With me, it's more animals these days, but there is that, people have the personality, and not this me, but I was thinking of an early portrait I took when I was in my 20s, and it was my father. Unfortunately, he died when I was quite young, but I was playing with portraits, and when my parents, I think, were probably similar to yours in terms of being quite conventional. My father's photography, a portrait was somebody, kind of little figure in the middle of the picture. You sort of make out who it was. That was his idea of a portrait. And when I took this picture of my father, my mother hated it because it was a real close-up. But to me, I felt I'd captured something of him. When you looked in his eyes, you see something of the man. And then after he died, that was the photo everybody wanted. And it was quite interesting from the perspective of, just sharing somebody with other people who maybe knew him, maybe they didn't. And then I think from what you're saying, clearly these are people that most people looking won't have ever met these people. But if you can give them a sense of connection with them, I think that's really expansive. I think that helps people to appreciate these other cultures.
There has to be that connection, especially with portraits. And it doesn't matter whether it's your father or whether it's your pet or whether it's some stranger, right? Whether there's some stranger on the other side of the world that you've not met before, I've spent a limited time with. In order for a good portrait to have an effect on the viewer, then I do believe that there has to be a connection between you, the photographer, and the person, the sitter, the subject, the model, because it just doesn't resonate. It's, especially in today's world of doom scrolling and saturation and digitization and homogenization, it's so easy to just scroll past stuff, right? If you put it into a young person's terms, what's gonna make them stop scrolling? Right? What's gonna make them, i.e. a good photo, or what makes a good photo, or something that resonates with an audience? Well, in the portrait genre, for me, it has to show some connection, and that could be, it's almost a tacit, an invisible element of a photo, right? How do you define that? It's very difficult. You just know when you see something, when you see a moving person in a still image, which is 2D, not even 3D or moving, right? That's extremely can be extremely powerful. So it's a huge challenge to try and do that, and that's why good photographers are able to do it, and the lesser photographers are not able to. It's not easy, and it takes a lot of time and dedication and skill, I guess, at the end of the day.
Yeah. And where do you get your inspiration for photography? I mean, most of us, I think, as photographers, our style evolves and we're constantly growing. And to me, that's one of the things that's exciting about photography, because I don't think you ever master photography in as much as there's always something new to learn. What inspires you?
Yeah, isn't that wonderful about photography, that it's just,
Right.
there's always just something to, to iterate, and there's always something to express, and a different avenue to go down, and different inspiration, different thing to try. So yeah, for me, it's a really good question, because I get inspired by so many different things on a daily basis, and the frustration that I find, and I'll answer your question a bit more directly in a second, but the frustration I find with photography is that I love it so much. I see so many different, I have so many different ideas, and I want to do this and I want to photograph that. And then I see someone else do something. That's amazing. I'd love to do something like that. And then admin gets in the way, and, you've got to pay the bills. So therefore you've got to do stuff you don't really want to do, and answer emails. And then before you know it, you haven't taken any photos. You haven't given yourself time to dedicate to trying that new thing, or going down that avenue, and seeing where that might lead, and failing, failing and trying again and failing, right? That process is so important. So yeah, my inspiration comes a lot from the people around me. I have some very very inspirational associates, and I guess friends here in Bali, and also around the world. The podcast I run, wow, what a privilege to be able to meet so many fantastic artists, and realize that, my goodness, my field of inspiration is so narrow. And so, just network and connection. But, everything from the greats of photographers back in the day and present time, to people I just meet in my studio, or on social media, or through photo tours, or competitions, or just, there are just so many people that inspire me, and places and cultures, right? It's so very easy to get inspired by a place, a city, or a cohort of people that you might bump into if you're traveling, or even in your hometown, right? So I think that it's very important to be open to as many types of inspiration as possible. But my biggest inspirational photographer, I should say, is Joey L. So Joey Lawrence, also known as Joey L. He's a environmental portrait photographer who led the way in kind of that subgenre for many years. I had the fortune of interviewing him on my podcast earlier this year, and he's really shaped a lot of my style, or at least there are lots of elements of his style in mine. which is, I always feel it's like a good and bad thing. It's great to have inspirations, but not to copy. So I'd really try not to copy too much and put my own spin on things. But like you said, I'm evolving all the time, and the more incredible photographers I connect with, the more I take from them or get inspired by them. So yeah, the list is endless. My style and kind of my voice in photography has changed a lot this year. The more inspirational figures I've met, and the more books I've read, and the more podcasts I've listened to or been on, and it's endless. It can get overwhelming sometimes, but it's only a good thing, right?
Yeah, well, I know what you mean, and you kind of stay excited, and it's almost okay. Which one am I going to go for now?
Yeah.
Okay. Looking at your life experience, and I don't know how much you want to talk about, and that's completely up to you. But I've read a bit in the bio that you had. What changes has that made to, I guess, your view on life? Because to me, photography is an expression of your view on life. We tend to either focus on particular subjects or look for particular outcomes, and it's based on what our life experience, what we want to communicate, what we want to share with others. What impact has your life experience had on your photography? And I don't know if you want to talk about that, that's fine, but I don't also set you up, so I'll hand that over to you as a hot potato.
No, that's absolutely fine. I talk about having cancer at an early age for so many times, and it's become, I even joke about it now, because I think if we can't joke about these things, then what can we do? But yeah, so I was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 22, and I was very immature 22-year-old. I was I wasn't very emotionally intelligent even for a 22-year-old. No offense to 22-year-olds, but most 22-year-olds are still growing in that type of philosophy. But for me, I was even more kind of immature in the emotional intelligence. So I didn't know how to process it until really 10 years later. I could deliberately and consciously kind of look back and go, oh, that's really how I processed it, and I didn't really realize at the time that's how I dealt with it. And really, it came out through travel. It really came out through, it was a cliche, but many a time I would just think, well, life is obviously too short. What am I worrying about this and that for? And I was a very anxious child, and so that dissipated a little bit. And as I kind of let go of some shackles and moving into photography, that really opened up my desire to just go and do what I wanted to do. And photography kind of overtook the flying side of my life, flying side of my passion, I should say. When I was able to recognize what I had been through and how my outlook on life had changed without me really knowing it. And so when I picked up a camera, I was able to then kind of deal with that. I was able to really put my front foot forward into self-expression, and that self-expression was really something of wanting to go and explore and wanting to go and connect with and empathize, try and just generate this empathy with people who are so different from me. And if I really felt that was kind of like the solution to everything in life, because life's too short to be held up on differences. We're all human, we're all people, and how could I kind of bridge that gap through something I enjoy doing with my hands, which was photography. So yeah, it wasn't quite a simple light bulb moment. Oh well, now I have this outlook on life. But I only really realized kind of how my self-expression would, and how what I wanted to go and do with a camera until I really picked up a camera, and that really helped cure my bug and my kind of need to go and express myself. So it was a fascinating journey in that respect.
Yeah. And I think that's a really valid point you've made about it's about meeting people who are different. It's about the difference. And for me, I think if all we do is meet people who are the same as us, we don't actually learn much. It's kind of boring, actually. But the more we meet people who are different, it makes us think about things differently. It makes us look at other people's cultures, look at our own culture from a different perspective. And I think in all of that interaction, we grow as people, and we mature as people as well. We realize there's not just one way of doing things and one way of being. There's actually very many ways of doing things, and living our life, expressing our life, dealing with problems, all that sort of thing. So I think that's a very important life lesson, I guess. And if more people learned it, I think we have a lot fewer problems, frankly, because you embrace the difference. That's where the joy is. That's where the learning is.
Yeah, people shy away from it, don't they? And now we live in a polarized echo chamber society where you don't really get those differences certainly when we're thinking about an online world, you don't really see those differences. And when you do, there's much more of a visceral reaction to it, right?
Yeah.
So when you're on, certainly when I'm got my camera in hand and I'm trying to connect with someone who speaks a different language, who doesn't really know about photography or really care about it, has a smile on their face but nothing on their back, and is able to just give me everything that they've got for that day. Yeah. I mean, how humbling is that? And how much of a privilege is that I can at least like spend that time with them and hopefully show people who see my photos that there are these people that live the other side of the world to you, or maybe not, just around the corner maybe, and they really can show us a different way of living happily, or a different way of living that is, that we can maybe learn lessons from. But at the end of the day, provide context and provide perspective to all of our lives, because we all, including myself, we all fall foul of being in our own little bubble, right? We in our daily grind, in our bubble. And a lot of us are not very mindful or aware of what else is out there. And that's why travel is such a good educator. But I understand that a lot of people can't travel and are not able to travel. And so hopefully, photography and documentaries and videos and books, these are designed to inspire and to educate and to make people aware. And if I can do that in an aesthetic way that's pleasing to the eye, then it's my job done, and I'm happy to do it. So I think there is a real connection to closing that distance between people, but also making people aware and giving them perspective that everything's okay. Your world is not the only world, right? And so we have to be able to empathize with other people, other forms of life, and how maybe we are affecting them or how they're affecting us, so that we're able to live a little bit more peacefully with each other, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good point you make about the travel, because not everybody can. But also, I think one of the powerful things about photography is that, most of us live in some sort of a community, and we can challenge, if anyone listening wants to pick it up, is to go into their own community and just photograph it and show aspects that perhaps they walk past every day. And I think one of the powerful things about photography, and I worked with a group called We Were Observers when I was living in Sydney, and I think that sums it up really well. It's about looking at what's in front of you and really looking. And one of the powers, I think one of the most powerful things we can do is take photographs of everyday things that, say, in Sydney, people walk past, thousands and thousands of people walk past little things that they'd never even see. And as photographers, we could pick up on those things and, bring them to other people's attention. And we can do that with people as well as objects. So, the challenge is there for us every day as photographers to go out and tell a story, be a visual storyteller, which I know is something that you're, is a strong part of what you do.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you've brought up, taking photographs of things that we we see but don't see every day, that
Yeah.
are part of our daily life, or just that we walk past, right? Or something catches a light that people don't notice, or a little moment. And these things are so powerful, because at the end of the day, for us to all be more at peace with oneself, or be happier, and we'll throw out all the cliches, but we're all searching for something. We're all searching for a better way of thinking, a more peaceful way of thinking, a more happy life, more contentment. The little parts of that all come down to just being present and being aware and being mindful of what we're doing on a daily basis, and what beauty we live in a daily life. And that can be the people that we're around, that can be structures, that can be geography, that can be animals, that can be so many things that we just so often just goes straight over our head, right? Because we're so involved in that daily hustle and bustle. So yeah, I really love that you brought that up. It's something I'm introducing more and more and more into my work as well, not just kind of the people side of things, but certainly the other elements of that story, and the other elements of a narration to still images. And that involves maybe a slightly more abstract ways of looking at things, but definitely involves more still life stuff. It involves more overseen elements of our visual picture, and to marry those and to pair those with portraits, or some type of environmental portrait is I think very powerful. It certainly helps with my storytelling for sure.
So one of the questions that we spoke about earlier, so we did have a chat before we started recording this, for those who are listening, because I'm not, mean. But the first one, what would you say to anybody who is listening, first of all, about, if you had to give someone advice about how to get maybe the most from photography, or just how to maybe broaden their horizons, what's a good thing they can do as a photographer to just start expanding and stepping out of what they've been doing? I don't know if that's a very good question to ask. I'll put you on the spot again.
It's a very good question. It's a very difficult question. Well, the first thing I'd say is buy my course. No, I'm joking. I honestly, I don't know how to answer that very well, but in my experience, I mean, there are so many different ways, but I think the biggest thing that has helped me, and that has helped me talk to other photographers who are starting out, or want to get better, or want to turn it from a hobby to professional, whatever it might be, their goal in photography, is there is no substitute for practice. There is no substitute for doing, and I don't mean practicing like structured, well, today I'm going to practice photography, but just living it, right? And that can be anything from a hobbyist to someone who wants to do it as a full-time profession. And for me, it goes across all of those levels, to actually just do it all the time. And that could be picking up a camera, going out, taking photos, or it could be taking 10 minutes of your day to read a photography book, or taking 10 minutes of your day to listen to a photography podcast, or to even just scroll Instagram, or scroll your favorite photography platform, gain inspiration, whatever it might be. Go for a walk and think about, okay, what would be a nice photo today? Or you can have specific intent of, I'm going to take this specific photograph today, or for the next month, of red things, or whatever it might be, right? There could be a wide array of intents behind doing photography, but I would honestly, from my own experience, the only way I've felt that I've got better, and the only way I've seen other people get better and become so fulfilled with photography, is many things, but the one common denominator is them doing it all the time, is just living it, and just really kind of just saturating yourself within the photography world. So that would be my biggest piece of advice, and that would look different for every single person out there, whatever that might mean. But just look, I'm just gonna engross myself in photography for this year, 2025 coming up. It's gonna be my photography year, where I'm just gonna enjoy photography on a daily basis, for whatever that might mean, and we'll see how it goes. You know, some people may retract and be like, oh, okay, this maybe wasn't for me. I might take my holiday snaps when I go on holiday, but I guarantee most of those people will come out of even just a month of kind of involving themselves with photography a better person, let alone a better photographer. So that would be my one piece of a nugget of knowledge, I guess.
That's a good answer to a tricky question. and I think that's right. And I actually just recorded a podcast yesterday, and part of it was talking about community. And if you can connect with other people, because I think that makes it, you know, when I was in Sydney, we do these photo walks, and it was 7:00 on a Tuesday evening. If you've got something like that, it kind of puts an hour in your diary, or an hour and a half. And I think the value of it is definitely your photography improves, but also you can step out of whatever the day-to-day stresses are and just immerse yourself in something that hopefully you love and inspires you for an hour and a half, meet other people if that's an option. And I think when you go back to the daily stuff, you're kind of refreshed in a way, or you can just look at problems slightly differently, and you've got that just sort of time out from the day-to-day. I don't want to say grind, but I know for a lot of people it is that. So it's that just a little bit of escape.
Yeah, I love that. I think community is so important in life, isn't it? Let alone, you know, a almost a superficial craft like photography. But one thing I've found is that it's quite difficult to find, depending on where you are. I found it quite difficult to find a photography community, and that's the main reason I started a podcast, is just to connect with other photographers. I know it depends. If you're in a city like Sydney, I imagine it's not that difficult to find little photography clubs and to find little communities. But you know, if you're in the country somewhere, or if you're in a country that isn't, I guess, as westernized or as visible in the photography world as somewhere like Sydney or London or New York or a lot of these big cities, then it can be quite difficult. It can be quite a lonely venture, right? To go and start a new hobby, or try and like actively pursue something like photography on your own. You know, you rely on YouTube, and you rely on your own fumbling around, trying to do something and trying to make better photos, not really knowing what you're doing maybe, and just trying stuff. Having that community, like you said, it takes you out from your own head a little bit, but you can gain inspiration, you have conversations, you learn so much, and you can just enjoy it. It's like being part of a team. You can just enjoy doing what you all love, you know, having something in common together. And yeah, I definitely agree with you on that respect, for sure.
Yeah, well, I live on the edge of a small town in rural southwest France, so I'm much more online these days. So
that sounds heavenly.
Look, most of the time it is, but there are shortcomings as well, as with everything. So yeah, I've got much more online. So I'm going to ask you the other question that I raised earlier that you're thinking about. You know, what would you say to 15-year-old Matt? What would be your advice? And and the reason for asking this is I think, you know, it's good to stop and think and maybe look back at what we've learned and what's different in our lives, because I think in doing that, we can sort of see how far we've come. And one of the things I find is that often we're kind of so sort of head down, getting things done, we don't realize how far we've come and how much we've learned. So again, it's another tricky question to throw your way. But what are your thoughts on that? What would you say to your much younger self? Or maybe not that much younger.
You're much younger. I can't even remember. I can remember being a very, very anxious 15-year-old. I don't know why. I had everything that was, it was very, very middle class, white male, middle England upbringing. And so I had absolutely nothing to worry about. And the irony was I worried about everything. So, it'd be easy for me to say, well, don't worry about anything. But I'd like to give myself, my 15-year-old self, some techniques to overcome that anxiety. But on a broader aspect, I would probably tell my 15-year-old self to say yes more.
Mm.
To say, and I found that out as I reached essentially probably late 20s, early 30s, where your earlier question about my illness, and I kind of realized, okay, I was able to process it as more of a mature adult and say yes to more things and go and explore. Now an opportunity comes my way, and my default answer is yes, let's try it. Right, let's see what happens. 90% of the time it doesn't work out, or I suck at it, but I enjoy that process. And my 15-year-old self would probably not do that. It's very, very kind of set in my ways as a 15-year-old, and very anxious and very, very, very insecure as a 15-year-old self, as a lot of 15-year-old teenagers are. So I would probably say that. I would probably say, look, something, if you get invited to something, or an opportunity comes away, or you have the opportunity to go and learn this skill, or go and join this team, or go and join this community, or not worry about what other people think of you. I was very much a status-driven teenager. I wanted to be seen to be good and successful, and I don't know where that came from. So yeah, I would definitely say to him, just worry less, say yes more.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's a great answer, and again, I can definitely relate to that. I think that's great advice, because I went through the same journey and used to be very worried about things, and then at a certain point just decided to say yes to pretty much everything. And a number of times I've been in a situation and thought, what were you thinking? But you get some great stories out of it.
Yeah, and you learn so much, right? As long as
you do,
we fail,
yourself,
as long as we learn from our failures. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, or having to step up in the way that we thought we'd never have to, and I think that's really tough. No.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, before we wind things up, Matt, is there anything else you'd like to say or share, or anything else to say before we finish our chat here?
Not really. I mean, we're putting my sales hat on. People can, check out my work, obviously, and just release my new online course, which is geared more towards portrait photography, but there is a general photographic element that runs through the course, which the idea behind it was to learn how to take photos with equipment worth less than $500, because
right.
I found a lot of people's pain points, or myths, should I say, were if you have better gear, you take better photographs, which they're not necessarily. There's no causation there. There is a correlation, maybe, but not causation. And so I wanted to really dispel that myth. So if that resonates with people, and they wonder why they've got $5,000 worth of equipment, but their photos still aren't where they want them to be, then my course may be for them. So that's all I'd say. But yeah, other than that, keep on tracking, keep on practicing, keep on iterating, keep on trying and failing, and we'll share this journey, this up and down journey together.
That's brilliant. Well, look, thanks very much for your time, Matt. I really enjoyed chatting to you. And for the link to Matt's website is in the description of the podcast. So you can find out more there. And thanks again. And I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks very much, Graham. I appreciate it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Now, I just want to say thank you for tuning in and joining me in the Wildlife and Adventure Photography podcast. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please give me a like, a subscribe, maybe tell your friends, and by all means, leave a comment. And if there is a subject you would like me to cover in the future, please let me know, and I'll be very happy to do my best. So thanks again for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again next podcast. Bye for now.